going off of the alien cultures, man, I think Sanderson knocked it out of the park with the Dions.
Yeah.
I loved the whole like idea. I mean, there's a lot of controversy behind it. Basically, it's an alien race where two parents can form a draft, which is basically like a baby. And the baby can get a few months into development, and if they don't like the baby's personality, they're like, yeah, we're just going to redraft you.
Yeah.
And you get to keep some vague, cloudy, hazy memories of your previous life, but you'll have a completely different personality. You'll have a different IQ, everything like that. It's going to be completely different.
I have to say... oh, sorry, go ahead, Captain.
I was just going to say, like, some people might view that as, like, murder, like you're killing, that person. And the unique traits that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting. Like, they were talking about how it's mainly the extended family members who will upvote or downvote the drafts.
Yep.
So it's like basically your family determines if they want you to live at like 4 months of age.
It has to be the family, right? Because until it's born, the parents are actually you. Like, they're combined into you at that point.
Right.
I have to say, like, I don't judge the people of this race at all. Like, I think that it's really easy just to say, like, oh, that's immoral or something like that. But it's like, this is what they know. And this is actually
their reality,
it's kind of like,
I mean, that's how they procreate.
But I personally think that not only is it I think it's a really bad idea, personally. I think that it's an absolutely terrible idea. But there's kind of like a trade-off that you come up with the two things. Like, when you have people that are allowed to kind of just like, basically, in short, what I'm going to say is you're going to create a society that doesn't change when you do that.
Yeah.
It's always going to be the same. And sometimes that's fine. And maybe they feel like they've reached a point where they don't need any more evolution or progress or anything like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
But you're definitely going to stagnate as a society if you do that. And I don't know. I don't like it.
I think we even get the hint that maybe they were wrong about that, because they were going to downgrade
Warmer.
Yeah. And as it turns out, she had more like kind of deep innate hidden potential than anybody thought, because you weren't looking at it from a different perspective.
Right.
And that's exactly what I think the director is trying to say.
Yeah.
The stagnation of that society. But it's such a cool idea to bring up, and then have that be a conflicting culture.
Yeah.
Because like with even not just humans, which Spence is not technically a human right now, but she thankfully is a alien breed that's close enough to us that there seems like we had a lot of cultural like interchanges. So it seemed like her reaction was normal, but other species were kind of thought it was a little like different as well.
It is.
Also, did you guys find it weird, like when Sanderson would write about one of them, it would be like, Spence would be like, even with Kuna, who's also one of that type.
Yeah. A Dion.
Yeah, they'd be like, I grabbed them.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And like we moved them
and
us. And it was like, it's so weird, because even the language that he was using to like write was about two people, not one.
Yeah, I looked over at the cockpit and saw Mortimer, and they looked back at me.
They looked back at me. Yeah, it's so interesting. But what a little like nice trick to give you that like alien feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like a little thing like that. A little nice stylistic trick to make you feel a little more alien.
Right.
I agree with the captain, though. I thought that was kind of a clever idea.
It was really interesting. I can't think of anything similar to that I've ever seen.
Yeah, same here. That was pretty original. It seemed really original to me.
Yeah. They say that there's like no new ideas. I think we just found one.
Felt very good to me.
That's the last one.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah.
Now we're
all done. Just get inspired by other ideas. So how about the Kitson? I enjoyed Heschel.
Oh, he was my favorite.
Yeah, Hesho. Yeah, Captain Hesho.
Captain Hesho, who is basically like a little miniature samurai Gerbil.
Yeah. When I was taking notes, I could never remember his name, so I just said Gerbil Fox people.
Gerbil Fox. Did you really say Gerbil? Okay,
Gerbil
nice.
Fox dudes.
Gerbil
Yeah.
Fox guy. Dude, the funny thing is I was reading that pretty fast, and the first time that I met them, I was falling asleep. And I was reading before bed in my audiobook, and I fell asleep. And in the morning, I started to read again on my way to work, and I was like, they were explaining the Kitson, and then I was kind of like, wait, is this guy a Kitson? And I had imagined, because I was dozing, I imagined the first conversations like some random alien, and then they explained the Kitson, and then they explained the like little fox people, and then I was suddenly realizing that he was like on a little tiny little fox gerbil, like on a little thing, and I had to go back and reread it and then reimagine like those scenes correctly with Hesho as like the little gerbil fox guy. But I thought it was hilarious. He would be sitting on like, instead of they'd be flying on the barge, and he would be sitting. Spin would be sitting, but then he would have like a whole like chair on top of a whole building and bars and like all kinds of like TVs and music, just because they provided it to him because they were so small.
Yeah.
Well, because he was the king, but he's not the king.
He's not the king.
He was one of the primary politicians of that planet.
Dude, for a long...
I kept, for all of our Overwatch listeners, people who are familiar with Overwatch, I was totally picturing Hammond, a.k.a. Wrecking Ball, the whole time for Hesho.
I have to say, at first, I thought the whole we're a democracy now was, like, bullshit. Like, I thought, because it seemed like they kept accentuating it. They kept being like, oh, but that wouldn't be allowed by the superiority rules, so we're a democracy. I thought it was like, wink, wink. But then it's like, they are now.
They were, well, I thought it was hilarious because...
They still, like, respect him and probably give his, like, opinion a lot of weight, but...
Well, I thought it was hilarious. Go ahead, Captain.
Go ahead, Demon.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. I'll go first. You go second, I guess. But I was going to say that I thought it was hilarious because you kind of get a feel that it could be a wink, wink.
Yeah.
But then you realize that they legitimately are trying to be democracy. But then the people can't, in their culture is so ingrained, they can't go against the king. And the king's trying not to. Hesho's trying not to, like, he's just trying to tell them what to do. And then they're trying to interpret what he meant by saying yes or no. So I thought the entire thing was hilarious.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's probably a lot like the George Washington situation. Because when our founding fathers created the United States, we had all these great intentions put into place, like, oh, our leaders are only going to serve 4-year terms. They're only going to have, they're going to have checks and balances with other state members. And right away, once we got independence, a lot of people were ready to give George Washington, like, sovereign power. Yeah. They're like, well, you can be our king, even though this is what we fought a war against. Yeah. And George Washington had the restraint to say, no, let's stick to the plan. I appreciate that you really, like, worship me. But no.
But that's a great, that's a fantastic comparison, Captain. Because it's like people who haven't had anything else, it's like they just automatically go back to that. And so, thank goodness you have people like Hesho or George Washington who can legitimately just go and say, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Show me a leader that is actively trying to reduce his power, and I'll show you a leader worth having.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's pretty awesome. So we got the Kitson. And I don't know, do you guys want to go all down deep on Hesho, or should we just like broadly talk a little bit about the crew, the new flight?
I do agree with you guys. I think it is kind of a democracy wink wink type thing, because the whole crew was always like, democracy. Like every time somebody mentioned it, I wanted to shout along with them.
Like, we're just trying to fit in. Oh man, and talk about the ingenious way that Sanderson used the continuous use of lesser species. Lesser species. Like, every time I read it, I was like, ugh. Stop calling me that. It's just like so well placed. So we have Hesho.
The thing I think is interesting, though, just really quick.
No, not quick. We could do whatever we want.
The thing that I think is interesting is just this like idea of like, saying the word lesser species definitely, like, it feels icky. But it's just like, I don't like the feeling of it. But if they didn't use that, they're still thinking it. It changes nothing.
It doesn't. And I think that's the point that he was making. And I think that word, not only did he not come up with a derogatory slang that they could use, he purposely just used the straight up word.
Yeah.
Lesser species.
Yeah.
I think there was actually a little symbolicness to that. It was just simple because it had nothing to do with making up a word or this or that. It had to do with the tying a word to the actual up here, the thought. It didn't have to do with the word. He just used the normal language, descriptive language.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
I do have to say that in a society, with the society, how they prioritize things. Now, I don't agree with their prioritization.
Right.
But in a society that literally prioritizes like lack of conflict over everything else, to the point where they can't even like cultivate people for conflict. They had to go out and search for people that are conflict averse or conflict prone.
Or just like at least somewhat open to it.
But in a society where that's like so important, really humans are a lesser species for that specific metric. You know what I mean? Like it's like we definitely are aggressive, conflict and prone and aggressive. You know what I mean?
We are aggressive compared to that.
Yeah.
Don't be so
but
aggressive.
But that doesn't make you lesser because overall everything has strengths and weaknesses. And that's where I think he was getting at, is that like they just take what they consider important and judge everybody by it, as opposed to looking at an overall like, well, what are the pros and cons of all this?
Right.
Because you guys are seeing the cons of what you find important right now. As soon as you have an enemy at your doorstep, you're useless. You know? So
But it's weird because I felt the king crab, the leader for the crab people.
Wizzick. Making me hungry, Ben.
Wizzick, right? It's Wizzick.
Whimsic.
Yeah. Like he would like instigate fights with people and then be like, "Oh, you're so aggressive." Oh,
right.
And like make them look bad. Like,
why am I?
I know.
Because he
Even though
realized
he was
how
so
to use
aggressive,
aggression in a society that was useless with aggression, and it would never defend itself.
Dude, good thing I wasn't in Spit's place. I'd be like, oh, I'm aggressive? Fuck you!